Welcome back to Keeping It Real with Mani and Lani. Thanks for joining us for another convo, and we are especially excited for today's episode.
Make sure to tune in to our previous episodes if you haven't already, as well as subscribe to our channels to get updates on new episodes. We also would love to hear your input on topics that we've already covered and to give us ideas of what we should cover in future episodes.
So, you are all probably wondering why we even started this podcast and how we became such great friends. So, we're going to spend this episode speaking about that. But first, let's start off with our tweet of the week. Mani?
Okay, my tweet of the week is really cute. I actually sent this to Lani earlier this week, but she left me on red. It's okay. My tweet is, soulmate friendships are indeed very real. I think this is really important because I feel like people talk about relationships and stuff. We always talk about I feel like I have a soulmate. I have that one that's for me. That's like, I'm supposed to end up with them. But I feel like with friendships, we're just kind of like, hey, I met you and we kind of stuck together or whatever. So I don't know. I like that tweet because it kind of makes it seem like friendships are deeper than just someone you run into. But yeah, what do you think of that tweet, even though you already saw it?
Yeah, no, I feel like there's something in me that always was curious about why, when it comes to friendships, I had such great deep connections with my friends. And a lot of people always associate that with intimate relationships with like a significant other or like a partner. And so I was always confused because I always had that with my friends, or at least the few friends that I've had. And I just feel like I got like a soulmate as a friend.
Period.
When I was explaining that to a lot of people, when it came to certain friends that I had, people were like, what are you talking about? And I was just like, nah, like, this is really my homie. Like, this is my dog. Like, that's my dog. Like,
Stop.
that's really, that's what it is. But yeah.
I agree. I feel all of the above, but kind of bring it back to us. I guess that's what that tweet made me think about. It's bringing it back to our friendship. I guess what was your first impression of me when we met? You have to keep it real on the podcast, even if it hurts my feelings. You can say it all.
My first impression of you, Lord. Okay, so what's so crazy is when I first met Mani, I was like, yo, she hella reminds me of just me and like being low key, and like that's just the type of people I want to be around. So I was always looking for like a low key crew in college. Mind you, I met her in college. A lot of people think we met like previously before college, and it's actually the complete opposite. We met in college. I was like going through already like a very rough patch of finding people that weren't actually benefiting me in a way that was like mentally and physically and emotionally healthy. And so finding Mani was really a breath of fresh air kind of. And I met another person with her, and so we all just kind of became like a little trio. And college, I will say, like, college became a lot easier when we all actually started talking. But yeah, like my first impression of her was like, oh, she's super cool, she's humble, like she's down to earth, like that's dope, like that's just somebody who's like me, which relates back to my tweet, which is by Crewables. She has like a little crown thingy, but my tweet is, friends that understand your antisocial phases and don't take them personally are important. And that was a really big thing when I realized me and Mani were going to be like such great friends. So Mani, what's your first impression of me?
Honestly, I think my first impression was that you were really sociable. And like for me, I'm like super, super awkward. Like when I meet people, even if I think they're really cool, I'm like, damn, like I don't know what to say. Like this is awkward. I have to force stuff with her. But like Lonnie was super chill, and I just realized that she wasn't like hesitant towards me or just like opening up, being super chill. And I was like, oh, like she's really nice. I could actually talk to her, because I'm the awkward one. Anyone who knows me when I first meet them, I'm just kind of like standoffish because I don't know how to talk to people. Because I always think like, oh, am I doing too much? Like, am I being a weirdo? But I just remember like her being super sociable and super kind, and I was like, oh, like I vibe with this girl. I definitely want to see her again and like keep up with her. But I also feel like when we first met, I didn't think that we were going to be like super close. Like I just thought she was like someone I was just going to see around, and that was just that. So it was really cool that like after a couple conversations I was like, oh yeah, she's the homie, like we're going to see each other. But yeah, I definitely felt like that first time I was like, yeah, I don't know what to say. I was just kind of like, you know, that awkward girl just kind of standing there, but the conversation flowed and I was like, she's really nice. I also just realized that you were like kind of vibing with everyone around us. I was like, oh, she brings good energy to where we're at. So I like that too.
We don't do fake vibes over here.
Period.
Let's lead this to the second question I got. Actually, this is the question I got for you. When did you realize you could trust me?
That's kind of a hard question, honestly. Like I have to think about this. Like I feel like before trust, I feel like there's like levels of like respect you build for someone. So I just felt like from the way that Lani carried herself and like how we were slowly like opening up and like getting to know each other, I was like, oh, she's really respectful, really kind. Like it's just like I feel like trust naturally builds when you have respect for someone. And I at that point already had respect for her in our friendship. So I feel like it wasn't long before I could trust her, but I can't like put a date or a timestamp on it, but I definitely didn't feel like it was forced. I was just like, after being friends with her for a couple months, I was like, oh, I could trust this girl. Like, I don't feel any type of reservation, which I feel like sometimes with friends, like you could be friends for like 5 years and still be like, yeah, I know that nigga's gonna steal from me, or I know that nigga's gonna, you know, take this out my car or something, and you just kind of accept it. But I never felt that way. I was like, oh, once I could trust her, I was just like, we cool. Like I didn't have to like go backwards. And I don't know, I've heard things where people be like, oh, I have to test you first to like see if I could trust you. And I just never had to do that with her. Like it was just off the bat, we were cool, and then we were cool after that. How about you? I don't know if you have a particular timestamp, but yeah.
I don't know if you're this type. I think we're opposites when it comes to this too. I'm a person that always starts off at like 100% trust for any person I meet. So I don't know why I'm like this. Sometimes I regret the fact that I'm built like this mentally, but anytime I meet someone, I'm like, okay, like I trust them 100%. I know they're not going to do anything shady, but the moment you do something shady, I will cut you off like I never met you. I will pretend you do not exist on this earth. It's a very toxic trait of mine, but it's just like one thing that I've always lived by is like having that self-respect for myself and knowing like the limitations that I can handle, and like if I have to be in a relationship with someone, it's gonna be a healthy one where I don't feel like I have to sit there and hide things from you, and I don't have to feel like you're doing stuff behind my back. So I think Monty is a build trust type of person. I don't think we're the same. I think we're different.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think I was just saying that I never felt like I had to test your like loyalty or like your like I didn't have to feel like, oh, I have to check if I can trust this person, but it wasn't like overnight. But I feel like it was faster than what I've had with more people, because I feel like with most people I've known them for hella long, or like we grew up together, or like I've known you since high school. So it's like that trust part was already built previous to my college years or something. So I'm not even thinking about trust. At that point, it becomes just kind of like how long I've known you. But as far as like making new friends, I've never like clocked, okay, it took me 3 months to like trust you fully, or it took me 6 months. Like I wasn't thinking like that. I was just thinking from like a respect standpoint. I feel like I built respect for our friendship so early on that trust just became natural. But I definitely feel like I trust more and more. Like I open up more and more as I get closer to someone. Like I can't be the type of person who met you on day 2 and like dumps my whole life story. Like I just can't do it. And it's not because I don't trust the other person fully. It's more just like I'm just too low key. Like I'm just like, I don't know what you're on. Like you might think I'm crazy. So I think it's more like personality wise, I'm just shy. So then it comes off as like I possibly don't trust you, but it's more just like I'm reserved. So I'm thinking the other person is not even trying to hear this shit. So I'm like, let me slow down. But that's kind of how I agree though. I definitely don't I can't turn up with you day one. It's not gonna work. Like I'm just gonna look at you, you're gonna look at me, and it's just gonna be a lot of awkward stares. But like month 6, you're gonna be like, who is this girl? Like she's not the same person I met. So
Facts. But yeah, there's like two types of phases of like trust for me. There's just trusting you as a person, and there's like trusting you with like my life, right? And I think for me, like the trusting Monty part was not hard, but it was like, can I trust her in a situation where I'm vulnerable and I need to be dependent on her? And I think that really happened probably like the end of our sophomore year. I think that was really when it was like, bam, like I knew like, okay, like I can trust this girl with my whole life and I don't have to even think like twice. But yeah, I mean, I think there was multiple trial moments and could test really the limits of our friendship, and we found like there wasn't boundaries to where we could stand as friends. And the way we exponentially were growing, I think it helped us so much in being able to trust each other. So yeah, I agree.
I also feel like going off of that, people always be like, oh, be careful, like when you first become friends with someone, of not doing too many things with them because you don't know if they're, going to be with you next year, they might drop you and like all this stuff. And I felt like we were already doing so many things together so quickly that I didn't even realize. Like, it'd be like first time we met, maybe kick it once a week. And then it went to like having coffee twice a day, to having every meal together, to having study sessions. So then eventually I didn't even notice I was spending like most of my day with Lonnie outside of class, or outside of work. So I think it was like most people always would tell you from the beginning, like, don't be hella close to people so fast. But I just felt like it was natural and it wasn't forced. And then at some point I was like, all the advice that Lonnie was giving me was advice that I would be giving myself. So then I was just like, I definitely trust this person 100% because they're not looking out just for themselves, they're looking out for me too. And I feel like you could tell based off how someone listens to you or doesn't listen to you if you could really trust them. So I feel like it was similar for me. I feel like by sophomore year, even like my mom kind of noticed. She's always like, oh, like hanging out with Lani today. Like they just kind of already knew that like I had no other like close friend like that. And like I feel like when your family peeps that you're close with somebody, you're close with them for real because they notice how your attitude and like your mood changes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Quick thing though, like even our families, we didn't even know this until like, what was it, like 2 years into our friendship? Our dads were best friends when they first came to America, and we felt so stupid because when they like rekindled their friendship when we introduced them to each other, because we were making funny jokes about this too. We were like, oh, like watch our dads know each other and like they're gonna be best friends and like already have hung out before. And we were like, nah, actually that's not gonna happen. And then our dads like saw each other and they were like, oh my gosh, my friend. And I was like, yo, this is weird. And Monty and I were just kind of triggered for a moment because we were like, is this fate? Like, was fate trying to bring us as friends to like help even our dads reconnect? And so I just think like that was also another moment where I was like, yo, like this is like my sister. Like, oh, okay, that's my homie, my day one.
Sick.
But yeah, once our parents knew each other like from a while ago, I was like, it was set for us.
It was so interesting though. Like I thought it was really cute at the same time because I was shook because I was like, how everyone says everyone in the East African community kind of knows each other or knows of each other, but for our dad to like actually be like roommates, like grew up, like lived together here once coming to the States, it was so interesting because I was like, Lonnie was like my first roommate. Like it all just came back like full circle. So I was like, oh, this is weird. Like I was like, oh. And then it was funny because Lonnie's dad would always be like, oh yeah, we were friends first, like gang shit. And I'm like, okay, you can't flex this on me. Like, that's what we're not gonna do. Like, but yeah, he always like definitely treats me like one of his daughters and like vice versa. I feel like my family definitely cares about Lonnie more than me sometimes, but like it's okay. But no, I definitely felt like that was real. Like all of that felt real after that. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, she's stuck with me whether she likes it or not now. So it's like, it's too late.
Facts. I don't think our parents are gonna let us just not be friends. So yeah, I feel like we just, really had like the same life values and morals. And, even though we both had, like different religious preferences, I felt like we connected also on like a spiritual level. And there was a lot of dots that connected in multiple places, and it just really did solidify like the way that we could function as friends.
So going off of that, we talked about like the fun stuff, which is like trust and being cool with someone. Was there a time that you were like actually angry with me, like for real, like I'm gonna fight this girl? And why was that reason? I feel like the people need to know, when we're really gonna fight each other.
So funny thing is I've actually never gotten to a point where I really wanted to kill Mani, which is a great thing because some people really be pissing me off. There's moments though that when I do get irritated with things that like decisions that she makes, and she knows this too. You know this, and you know what exactly irritates me when it comes to like the way you deal with certain situations in life, especially with like the ways that people treat you. I'm like a super protective person. So like when it comes to like people around me and like in my circle, I'm very protective of the people that I care about, right? So if anyone's like mistreating somebody that I really truly care about, I'm very passionate about making sure that person knows like I'm there to protect them, and like I'll do anything to make sure that they don't feel like they're in danger. And Monty's the complete opposite and will literally get dragged into some mess. And I'm sitting there like, Monty, I could beat up these people if you need me to. And she's like, no, like, please, like, I need to stay good with God. And I'm like, God did not bring this. This is straight shaitan. I don't get it. And so we would just sit there and like have moments, and I would just have to breathe and like walk away because she would just be irritating me. But like that's literally the only thing like we ever like had a huge disagreement on my part. I think we mostly just bother each other sometimes. Like I'll, like push her in the face, and then like she'll like push me or hit me with a pillow in my face. And like that's pretty much the extent of how much we fight. But we're like super chill and like we just don't push each other's buttons in that way. And we're very respectful in like the way that we communicate with each other. And so we're not trying to make each other feel bad about ourselves. And we always communicate too if like somebody had maybe done something that irritated the other. And that's like, I feel like that's why we're so comfortable around each other, that we don't have to sit there and fight.
Yeah, I really can't think about a time that I was like pissed off, but I just remember before we started living together, everyone was like, if you guys don't get along, like you guys not might be friends after living together. Because I've heard some horror stories about people like really disrespecting their best friend. And it's not even coming from a place of wanting to disrespect them, but once you start living with somebody, like you really know if you guys can respect each other's boundaries to a point where like, okay, we don't need to talk from 7 to 8 p.m. and that's okay. But like, I feel like there were times where we would both just be super cranky and like I would be bored, so I would piss her off because I'm trying to stay awake. So literally there'd be times where we're both trying to nap before a quiz or something, and I'll just wake her up like 30 minutes early. Homegirl could have slept for another 30 minutes. It's just like dumb shit like that. But like I've never done things to the point where it's like genuinely I was like, oh, this was like principle, like this was wrong, like morally wrong. It was more just like, oh yeah, I'm like, can you make me food after like midnight? And it's like we're both trying to go to bed, like stuff that's like, nigga, you could have asked me 2 hours ago. Like why ask me now? Stuff like that. But I feel like we genuinely never had an argument or debate over stuff that was like morals, besides like other friendships that possibly like, infiltrated our friendships, because at that point we're spending so much time together that it's like, oh, like my other friend groups and like how I rock with them and stuff like that. And so when we would notice like how other people were treating each other, we're like, oh, that's kind of foul. We're like, swear, I don't think that's foul. And then like we start having debates about that, but never about like our character or anything like that.
Yeah, I feel like we keep it pretty respectable on like when it comes to disagreements. Like I've never had to sit there and be like, nah, like fuck you, sis. Like I don't be doing all that. Like we don't be sitting there getting on each other's head in that way, because I feel like that too takes away from the trust of a friendship. And so for us, it was so important that we had respect and that we had experience with other friendships that taught us, okay, like these are things that we don't want in our friendships. And since we are already so open about that in the beginning, and even throughout our friendship till now, we even talk about it this like every day about how we don't like being around fake people, and we already have a hard time being friends with women. And so with those two things, we're always super cautious about the way that we approach each other about specific stuff. And we're also like super relaxed and chill. And like a lot of people who know us, when they say like, oh, y'all seem like you knew each other for so long, it's because of the way that we just, our chemistry really aligns. We are super chill and like never are sitting there like, anything Lamani says, even if it's like disrespectful, I just laugh about it because it's just funny. Because I know she doesn't say it out of intent of trying to hurt me. It's like out of intent to just joke around with me. And that's like vice versa. I think we just both have that soul-like agreement that it's not even that deep. Like life isn't that deep. Like we don't have to sit there and just be jealous of each other and stuff. Like I'm always 110% happy for anything that happens for her, right? Like I'm always trying to grow with her, and like she's always trying to grow with me. Like we never have to sit there and battle each other and like feel like we're in competition. So that's like I feel like one of the great things about our friendship. And then like connecting that even to like my next question, what is one thing our friendship has taught you about healthy friendships in general?
I think the biggest thing I learned is like it's never really about like you know, the little stuff that people make seem like it's a big deal, which is like how long you've known someone, how much time you guys spend together. I mean, I was always scared that if I'm spending too much time with someone that it could go left, because I had previous experience where I had friendships where I was either spending too much or too little time, and that blew up in my face. So I was like, okay, I need to navigate this real careful. But even though we were spending hella time together, and also like Lonnie was now hanging out with friends that were like friends that I had prior to our friendship, because I'd be like, oh, you can bring Lonnie if you guys are having a little dinner or something, or birthdays. And like now all my friend groups are kind of mixing together. The one thing that I learned is like it's okay for you to do that as long as you respect each friendship individually and not treat them like all the same thing. Like you need to cater to your friends in different ways. So like if you have a friend that, you know, you don't go to school with, you still need to make sure you check up on them in the way that you can in the time that you have and still maintain that friendship. And then the people that, you know, you go to school with and you kick it with, like you're going to see them every day, but still making sure that, you know, you check in on them, make sure they're straight. And so not taking seeing people every day as checking in on them. And I feel like before I used to take like, oh, if I see you every day, then we're just cool. Like that's not what checking in on a friendship is. And like, that's not necessarily healthy just because you see each other every other day. It's more about, you know, can I tell you if I'm like having a rough patch or if I'm going through some shit right now? Can I like call you on the phone or meet up with you and just tell you what's going on? Or can I cry on your shoulder? Or can I like, can you be that person for me when I'm really going through it and at my highest moments? And so that's what I learned is like, it's not about the stuff that people over exaggerate, which is like, oh, we don't kick it every day, so clearly we're not as close as we used to be. Like, no, you could still text me every day. I could still see you once a month and still be just as close. But it taught me about the boundaries of my other friendships and how to cater to them as well, because I felt like I had a lot of friendships previous to my closer friendship that not all of them were healthy. And so I didn't really notice that. And I started to like internalize some of that stuff. So I was like, okay, no, I can't internalize this as I move forward because it's not okay. But yeah, what did you learn, Lani, about friendships? I feel like we both had a roller coaster throughout college of friendships.
I came into college with like, I'll say I had four best friends and then one I dropped probably like a month into college just because of like, it was just a very like toxic relationship in which we had built. It was based off of situation and like being in school. Like, mind y'all, if you're in high school right now, those friendships do not last because y'all just depended on each other while y'all was in school. Like, I thought, yo, like these are my best friends, but if you cannot continue your friendship throughout college, it's just not, it wasn't meant to be. And so I had a lot of trial and error when it came to college because college is like a whole nother test really for when it comes to friendships and relationships in general. And I already was just super hesitant when it came to friendships and meeting people because I had started off with like a roommate situation, which wasn't so great. And like having friends that also, you know, that I had met in the beginning of the school year that weren't so great as well. So it wasn't working out for me, and I was already just kind of in a very like depressive state and didn't feel like friendships were really something I could handle. And I always thought like it was something personally about me. Sorry to get deep on y'all. But when I specifically like met Monty and my other friend as well, it helped me a lot with clarifying really where I needed work to be done when it came to friendships with other people. And two things that I learned is actually catering to people's love languages, because we always are talking about love languages in the sense of, you know, having an intimate relationship with a significant other. And I'm gonna keep bringing this up because people take significant relationships with significant others so seriously that you are okay with abusing your friendships, and your friendships should be taken care of at the same level. And that was something I had to really come to terms with because I didn't realize that I wasn't caring for my friends in the way that I had want them to care for me. And so learning about love languages and learning about the things that Moni liked and Moni like wanted from me was something that helped me a lot with kind of understanding her and understanding the way that our friendship would work. And vice versa, really, and her just understanding me and what I wanted from her, made so much of the stuff that was going on between us when it came to friendships much easier. We were able to do things like school. We were able to do things like extracurricular activities together because we were on the same page about what we wanted from each other when it came to our friendship, and where there was boundaries and where there wasn't boundaries. Um, and that taught me a lot when it came to my other friendships, and how, sometimes if you're not actually putting in that effort, you get different end results. And that did lead to a lot of people I had to drop as friends because we just weren't connecting on that same page, right? Like I was doing a lot of reaching out to people, trying to get to know people's love languages, but people weren't reciprocating. And you have to be really diligent about the relationships that you're curating, because that's a lot of energy coming out of you. And if you're truly actually investing yourself into people and they're not investing themselves into you, you got to really take that into account of, is this something worth my time? And my second thing is, I had to learn the difference between communicating and like comprehending. I could sit there and talk to Moni about hella shit for like 2 hours, but it's a matter of, is she actually listening and taking it in? And is she actually trying to like talk to me about it? Because I had friends that would sit there and listen, but they weren't even actively listening. Like they weren't sitting there actually trying to remember what I'm telling them. Definitely rubbed me off the wrong way, because I'm the type of person that, I spend a lot of time also sitting down and listening to people. And I realized, I was like, yo, I don't do the same thing. Like I'm not even sitting there comprehending what people are telling me. And I knew that if I wanted that out of somebody, I had to do that as well. And so that was like, those were the two major things I learned about healthy relationships when it came to friendships. Oh, a huge thing I totally forgot. Being like the therapist friend is not healthy. And I had to learn that the hard way, because people be thinking, oh, like being your friend, like being there for your friend is what friendships are about. And it is, but there's an extent to it. And I think there was a point in time where it became toxic for me and that person. And it happened in multiple situations. And it got to the point where a lot of people were blaming me for the way that certain situations in their life was going on. And it hurt me because I blamed myself for a lot of those things when I didn't realize those people could have sought help. And it's like professional help. And you have to understand, like, everyone has healing they have to do. Like everyone's not perfect. And when you try to seek healing through a friendship and a person, you're putting your responsibility on that person. So it never works out. So don't be the therapist friend. But yeah, those are the things I learned.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff I learned too, but it kind of makes me think about how people would always like romanticize like riding or dying for your friend, or like, being hella loyal regardless of the situation and stuff. And like at the end of the day, I feel like Lonnie was like, why are you still doing this, like this stuff for this person? Like they're clearly not reciprocating. And like for me, it was always back to the dean, and like we're both religious people, so I'd always be like, Sabbath, like, God teaches us to be patient with people and forgiving, because at the end of the day, like we want him to be merciful to us. And so that's kind of the mindset I always went in with any situation regarding people. And so even if people are doing me dirty, I'm always trying to think, okay, how can I still be like patient with this person? And then there's a point where it's like you're just not like, there's no point in what you're doing anymore, because the other person isn't even taking what you're doing to be as good, because they're not appreciating it. And so I just remember like waking up and being like, okay, maybe Sabbath isn't always the option, but I feel like I stayed so like, that was just my idea or mindset. I was always like, okay, I gotta have Sabbath, I gotta have patience with this person, like I gotta see how I could save this. And like, and like that's so toxic, because like, why are you trying to save something that shouldn't be saved? Like, some friendships are meant to be temporary, and I feel like for me, I always had a hard time believing that, because once I start being friends with someone, I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking about your wedding day. I'm thinking about 20 years from now. I'm thinking about those girl trips we're gonna go on. Like I'm really thinking, how am I gonna like help this person through their whole life? I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm gonna drop you tomorrow. Like that's not how I think. And so I feel like it hurt me more, because I feel like I had this envisionment that I had to ride for someone for so long, even if they were doing me dirty. And so I feel like I woke up and was like, okay, they're not giving you the same energy. Maybe you just need to let it go. And so I feel like that's what it taught me about healthy friendships. Even now, moving on, when I like make new friends, I feel like now I'm not as hesitant to make new friends, but I definitely have higher standards for what I expect from a friend. Like I'm not just gonna take the whole like, oh, I could take advantage of you and then drop you tomorrow. Like, nah, we're not doing that anymore. And so it taught me a lot for sure.
And just even like speaking on that too, and how being a ride or die friend and how longevity doesn't equate to loyalty. People, I think, mix this up so many times, and the fact that they think like, oh yeah, like I've been friends with this person for 8, 20 years, like that makes them like my best friend and they know me the best and they're the best person to have by my side. That's not true. Like I have learned the hard way that does not work when it comes to friendships, and that they do determine how they work based off of how much effort you put into them and how much effort the other person's putting into them as well. And that if you truly are not on the same page, it doesn't matter how long y'all are friends for. Because I've had friends that are the same amount of time and even more than I've had with Mani, and they're not even nearly as deep as mine and Mani's friendship. And that was something that I had to really come to terms with, because I thought, oh yeah, like I've been a good cool 6, 8 years friends with this person, and that's my homie, that's my ride or die. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait a second, they don't even check up on me. I'm going through this hard stage in my life. They didn't even say, are you good? But I got, someone over here that's asking me if I'm okay, if they need to drop off stuff to my house to make me feel better, if I need to leave my house and just go on a break, if I need to, like get a book to relax or something. Like these things were so, it really made it a lot more clear to understand these things when I started separating longevity and loyalty. And that loyalty really truly comes from people exhibiting an actual interest to be a friend with you and actually puts in that 100% authentic effort to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like the loyalty story just gets played out so much. And I also feel like with at least okay, for women, it's not to bash women. I think relationships with women are the most beautiful if you can get them. But I feel like a lot of times in society, they're always pushing the narrative, oh, girls are haters, everyone's jealous, blah, blah, blah. And so there's already this issue of being able to fully open up to a girlfriend and having that, woman friend that could really relate to you on every spectrum and every level. And so when you have a friend that you've been rocking with for like 10 years, no matter how trash they treat you, you don't want to even think about dropping them because you're like, damn, I don't want to go make a new friend that I have to show my whole like vulnerability to and like start from ground up. Like it's just too much work, You're like, I'd rather stick around with this trash friend and try to make it work and beef with them every other month and still be their friend because they're still my friend at the end of the day, regardless. And it's like, no, like that's not good that you guys are beefing every other month and not talking to each other. That means that there's serious issues that you guys need to hash out. After that, whether or not you want to keep the friendship, that's on y'all. But I just feel like for women, at least, we get this like really bad narrative, especially on social media all the time, of like how girls are jealous of each other and like we're always in competition. A part of that is true, like society does put women against each other, but I think it's deeper when you start to internalize that stuff, because then it makes, even for me, like it makes it really hard for me to go up to another girl and just like open up to her and be like, oh, I want to be your friend, because you just don't know people beyond or like what they're internalizing as well, because they might be scared too, like, oh, I don't know if she's genuine, I don't know if she's really trying to be my friend or if she's just a hater hoe, and that's just what you have to deal with. And so when and so when you have that one friend, you're like, I'm gonna keep her around for 25 years, even if she, she beats me up sometimes and we cuss each other out and we might have to scrap up on the street. Like, I'm gonna just keep her. And I feel like that's really toxic, because I would see a lot of people really struggle with leaving friends out and stuff like that. Even myself, I was like, I'm not gonna drop this girl, I've been friends with her for too long. But there's just so many red flags. It's like, if it was a relationship, you would have dropped this person, but because it's your friend, you're making all these excuses. It's like, nope, you gotta let them go. And so it does suck, but I feel like now I'm getting to a point where I'm just going off of the relationship and not about loyalty. I'm gonna go off of how you treat me and where we're at. I'm not gonna be like, oh, we've been friends for 10 years, therefore we gotta be friends for life. No, because that's just toxic. I'm over that shit.
And that's on period. Purr.
So going off of all that, that's kind of like a lot we just talked about with friendships and our friendship. But I guess people really are probably wondering, like, why did we start this podcast, or where the idea even came from? I'm gonna let Lani start this off because she can explain it better. But why do we want to do this podcast?
Yeah, I'm gonna just let y'all know the real tea. There was no day where we were like, yo, this podcast thing, that's us. There was never a day like that. I'm gonna let y'all know now. Like, we dead ass, like, we're just chilling and we just always be talking and having these cool conversations. And people just kept coming to us like, yo, like, y'all should really just start recording these and posting it. And I'm like, no, maybe later. Like, people are not on the same level as us. Like, not like as a way of like saying, oh, we're the elite, but it's more like people don't really understand sometimes the way that we be communicating to each other and just the conversations we be having, and the fact that we're okay with being wrong sometimes is just something that a lot of people aren't willing to be ready to do. A lot of people are very, they're very conscious about the way that they think of themselves, and so sometimes people don't have certain conversations about things. And me and Mani are very open about, our ignorance and being able to have a space where we actually are just listening and learning. And I think that was just kind of what the basis of our podcast was really generated off of, was wanting to start promoting spaces where people can just stop and just think and listen and not have to just jump to like straight up attack mode. Because I feel like people nowadays are very sensitive in the way that we communicate with each other, and people are, instead of listening, they're just sitting there just spitting out stuff out of their mouth. And sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, but the matter is people aren't even listening to each other anymore, and authentic conversations aren't happening anymore, and people aren't even talking about things. We're only talking about things that make us comfortable. And so we wanted to stir the pot and shake up the room, just make people feel like they can talk about things and not have to be super self-conscious about what they say. And that, yes, you can be wrong, but you can learn and keep it pushing, and that's it.
I also feel like people always tell us that we should start a YouTube because we're both just hella dumb, like in real life. Like, we just do a lot of embarrassing shit. Like, honestly, I would want to see myself on YouTube because I'm hella embarrassing in public. But we're like, okay, we need to do more than just make dumb videos. And I feel like the podcast would be more of a natural way for us to just express ourselves without doing too much. I also feel like now podcasts are kind of a place where people really talk about anything and everything. And knowing us, like, we just want to cover hella stuff and just talk about hella stuff with y'all. So we're like, okay, podcast is like the way for us to go. I also just feel like with conversations and stuff, like Lani was saying, like, people really don't deep stuff anymore. Like, we're just so into cancel culture, and like people are so standoffish because they're like, oh well, I don't want them to think I'm this way, or I associate myself with this if I bring up something. And so I feel like the podcast is a natural way of us being able to talk about stuff we care about and just our life in general without making people feel like they have to like have an answer. It's more just like, okay, if you walk away from our podcast laughing or thinking about something that you hadn't thought about before, like, that's all we want. We just want it to be a natural space where go talk to your friends about something that came up in this podcast that you hadn't thought about before. That's when I realized that that's what I love about other podcasts I listen to, is like they be bringing up stuff that I'm like, damn, I never thought about that like that. I'm like, I'm tripping now. I'm like, I'm gonna go sit here and ask all my friends what they think about this. And so it's just creating conversation that you may like not have had if you didn't listen to this episode. So we just want to create space for healthy dialogue. And for the record, we are not experts in any of the topics we are talking about, but we're doing that to normalize that it's okay to not know everything about a topic. Because I feel like 2020 people will be like, oh, where's your degree, what's your credentials at, da, da, da. Like, bro, it's not about that. It's about the fact that we're all people first. At the end of the day, we all go through shit, and we all have something to offer at the table. It's just like, it doesn't matter what degree you carry. It's more about what can you say about a certain topic that you identify with, or that you've seen in your life, and no one can take that like away from you. So we're really just talking from the heart. We're keeping it real. We're bringing up topics that we care about. Also just random stuff we don't know yet. It's gonna be a lot of stuff. We're just trying to stir the pot. Honestly, we're trying to see some. I'm trying to get y'all on your toes. But that's really what we're trying to do with this podcast.
One thing for us is like, it's so important to just deconstruct already the culture that we're, raised in, we're brought up in, and the fact that like we are raised in a problematic culture. So naturally we're going to have problematic ideas and values and morals, and the way that we view certain things, we're going to think it's problematic. And so that's it's so important to always just keep deconstructing that and always be curious about the things that we have already learned and things we have not learned about. And so that's also just kind of tying into like really why we even do this, and that yes, like we do, everyone has a problematic moment in their life, and it's about embracing that problematicness and just, you know, deconstructing it and moving on from that and becoming a better person. And we're doing that through this podcast and by talking to each other. But also, the reason why we even started this too, especially during this time, is because we just kind of felt like we were missing out on all the combos that we were having. And, you know, with pandemic season, it's been very hard to connect with each other and keeping up with each other's lives. And so a nice, easy way to just kind of de-stress and just talk about things that we would talk about naturally if we were outside and doing stuff. But yeah, like kind of speaking on that, can you find a friend through social media at this moment in time? And like, is it even healthy to find a social media dependent friendship? Like, is that, would you do that, Monty? Would you do that?
I'm like really thinking about like social media friends that I have. Like I have a couple. I want to say like 4 or 5. We've never met in real life till like later, like maybe 6 years of snapping each other up, having hella convos. So I think it's possible, but I don't know if it can be to the same depth that I would like a close friend to be. But I think you can find friends on social media. I think what I've noticed though on Twitter and other social media apps is they try to make it seem like you can become hella close friends with someone over social media. And I don't know how realistic that is. I feel like it would take a lot of time, a lot of, meetups, like maybe going to each other's cities or, just other things to make y'all closer. But I think just meeting them through social media and like maybe only having their Instagram and their Snapchat or their Twitter, I just feel like it's not as realistic to have a social media dependent friendship just because you guys don't really know each other. Like social media is a persona. Like at the end of the day, you might know me in real life, but what I post on Instagram is the highlights of my life. I'm not really going to post no bad stuff. I'm going to post when I was looking the cutest, when I was having the best days. I'm not going to post nothing bad. So you're only getting a certain part of my persona on social media. So yes, you could like that part of me, which is still a part of me, but it's not really all of me. So I just feel like you wouldn't build a deep friendship on social media, but I think you could build like a surface level one. Like maybe y'all have the same, fashion sense and y'all, collaborate on where to get clothes from, or you guys have the same music, like listen to the same type of music and you guys share playlists with each other. Like I feel like it's very surface level things. I don't think you could be like hella deep friends. But I've definitely had social media friends that I've been friends with for a couple years, and then I'll meet them in person and they're cool ass people. But like I just don't know about every single social media friend being like a close ass friends. Like I feel like that's kind of weird.
I don't know. I kind of feel indifferent about it because when it came to like things like pen pals and just like meeting random people and just communicating with them, I thought it was really cool because you guys were both coming from like a non-judgmental space. So they didn't know anything about you, how you looked, what your values were, your background, kind of just nothing really about you. And you guys were solely just communicating off of the things that you guys wanted to talk about. And I thought that was really dope because it really took away like the prejudgments that people come with when they meet somebody and have a friendship with somebody. And I don't know if that really transfers well though with social media because, with social media, you could see people's pictures, videos of them, trips they've taken or how their families looks like and their background and all this stuff. And I think it sometimes can overexpose a lot about a person, but I think it also can give a sense of, I don't know, it can sometimes give a sense of like curiosity in wanting to know somebody. Because I don't know, like I like meeting people and I'm cool with meeting people, but I don't sit there and I'm like, okay, like you're my best friend after I meet you on social media. Like I gotta know how you are in person. But I don't know, sometimes I like meeting people just through social media and just talking to them because people are just so different and people have such different backgrounds and stories and people's lives are just really interesting. And so just being able to hear a random person's life story, obviously that's not happening on the first day, but just like hearing about them, what they do on a daily basis and just how that differs from your life can sometimes just give you a variety and clarity and just kind of make you feel like, oh, okay, like this is a new thing that I didn't know about. Like I'm constantly being introduced to like different things when I meet people. So I think that's like the really cool, dope part of meeting people through social media, because they're traditionally not people you would meet in public.
Do you think that, like, I'm thinking now with like COVID, right? Like a lot of the friends that I've made, I met in person, even if it was random. Like I met you first before like developing a friendship. Do you think like now with the way things are going, God knows when this COVID stuff is gonna go back to normal, do you think that it'll be a new norm, I guess, for people to have like social media friendships first and then becoming friends? Because it's gonna be honestly super hard to meet someone in public. Like you're not just going to meet people at the coffee shop or at the library or at your job because you're just at home all the time. So you might meet someone who's posting stuff and then someone's like, oh, like post something and you end up on their page randomly, might end up DMing them. And then like, that's how I see people making friends now, which is like really hard for me because I'm like, I don't know if I'm that forward. Like I always think people who DM me on social media, like they always have an agenda. Like, I don't know why I think like this, but I always think that like, unless someone is like telling me about you or we have mutual friends or like something, there's no other like way for me to know you and you just hit me up out the blue, I'm always thinking there's some agenda. I'm like, who is this person? Like, how did they find my profile? Like, I'm never thinking that it's just because you're just trying to chop it up because I just don't know people beyond. But I don't know. I feel like that might be a new normal for people of like meeting people through social media, which I still can't wrap my head around because I always think social media is cool, but I don't know, there'd be some interesting people on social media. I'd just be like, I don't know.
I think a big thing for me is like I think I need to meet people now on social media because let's be honest, these face masks are really hiding people. And I do not know how people look until I see them without their face mask. And I don't want you taking off your face mask because I don't want corona. But having social media and meeting you on social media can help me a lot with like visualization of just the type of person you look like and just associating you to make sure like you're not crazy or you're not in the news for killing somebody or kidnapping somebody. Social media has already been changing the way that we interact with people and the way that we develop relationships, friendships, intimate relationships, even like family like relationships. I think it's changed a lot of the way we think about how we build those. And I think it's pretty harmless. I think it's more of the people that are using social media are the harmful ones and using it in toxic ways to manipulate people and use them. And it's just, it can sometimes be very dangerous trying to find a friend on social media. So I think, it's not the necessarily the platform and how we connect. It's about the people that are trying to connect. So I think if we changed kind of the culture around social media interactions and just like people in general, if people have a lot more respect with each other, I think social media can be a really key thing to just developing a lot more friendships and relationships for people.
So if your husband DM'd you right now, would you answer? He's a prospect, but you don't know yet. I'm leaving that nigga on red.
Y'all, I don't think y'all understand. Lonnie and I do not take DM seriously. It's such, I know people are always like, you can't judge where you meet somebody, but I'm like, yo, I can't because I don't believe in love at first sight, but I kind of do. Like, I think if I don't have a sudden attraction to you when I first meet you, social media ain't gonna help with that. So, I mean, you could DM, I guess. I mean, I'm also the type of person that likes to be friends with somebody before I find them attractive. So, or not find them attractive, but find them as somebody that I could have a relationship with. So, maybe?
Yeah, I will leave that nigga on red. I'm gonna be like, try again. I'm like, that's not enough energy for me. I'm all about the toxic energy. I need to see you in person first. I need to see what you're working with. These niggas be playing too much on Instagram, bro. I can't take Instagram serious anymore. Same with Twitter. I feel like people just be too goofy on these apps. I just can't.
Monty, you be goofy yourself. I can't.
Okay, and I'm niggas, okay? Why are you being loud? Like, it's me. I'm niggas. It's me, okay? Like, fuck. If the majority is being dumb, guess what? I'm a follower, bro. I'm gonna be dumb too. But people, if people were coming correct, maybe I would be a changed person. I blame the public for what they be doing on social media because I'd be doing it too.
You are the public. But y'all, when I tell y'all we have stories for the people that we have met through social media, like it's so funny. Like we're just hot messes. But that's another story for another time. But with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and close the episode. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We'll hope to see y'all next week.